The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion today is modern day slavery. Joining us this evening on the show are Shreen Abdul Sarur, activist, Michael Joachim, Chairman Prido, Plantation Rural Education Development Organization, as well as Dilshani Nugavela, coordinator of Voice of Migrants Network. To pose questions from our panelists, onto my immediate right is Teruni, and onto my immediate left is Niresh Eliathambi, who is the consultant English news director at Newsfirst. You too can join in as far as the conversation is concerned. The number is 076 656 5353. The number once again, 076 656 5353. So let's tonight get the ball rolling with Shreen Abdul Sarur on our topic today, modern day slavery. Your time starts now. What are your thoughts on our topic tonight?
So, modern day slavery, first we have to have a bit of a definition. So it is where someone has been exploited by others for personal or commercial purposes. In Sri Lanka, that we have been having modern day slavery, or we call it contemporary forms of slavery. There's a special mandate holders at the United Nations, and the UDHR very clearly defines slavery. In that context, Sri Lanka has been having modern day or contemporary forms of slavery in country, and also we are sending our migrant workers abroad in modern day slavery conditions, including human trafficking, bondage labor, kind of a confined kind of a workplace. And the workplace itself, when it's not decent work, when it's dangerous work, then it becomes slave-like conditions. So Sri Lanka has 1 million workers, migrant workers working outside. About 70% of them are women, and many of those women are in domestic spheres, which means they are confined to 4 walls. And there have been contemporary forms of slavery there. They have been undergoing quite a lot of abuse and all. In Sri Lanka itself, that we have forced child labor, and also we have 200 years of upcountry workers being in modern day slavery in this country, and also we have women being sex trafficked. More recently, horrific stories are coming out, and also that we have in Sri Lanka laws that are so flawed that women are being abused for sexual purposes. And we also have heard, again, horrific stories about human smuggling, not only for sex trade, but also to steal their organs.
Shreen, you say something very interesting in your opening remarks. You say that human trafficking, bondage labor, then you say 90% of the women who are being sent out of the country are subjected, majority of them are subjected to dangerous work because they are confined into 4 walls. These are alarming trends. Don't you think the organization that has to step in to arrest this problem is a Foreign Employment Bureau of the country? Are they doing enough?
Not at all. With regard to Foreign Employment Bureau, it's very interesting. You have to see the composition. Right now, there are 7 board of directors. 4 of them are employment agencies representative. You don't have single representative of the workers in that board, right? And then the other 3 represent Sri Lankan government. It's a semi-government institution, but it mostly represents the employment agencies. Right? Therefore, Sri Lankan Employment Bureau itself, for many of us, is a perpetrator. Right? They say that they are doing welfare of the workers, but what we hear from workers is horrendous stories from them with regard to when they approach Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau for assistance, how they are being treated. Even I have personally engaged with them more recently, towards end of last year. About 32 of Sri Lankan women were trafficked to Oman for sex work. And our 3rd secretary in Oman embassy have been engaged in trafficking those women, and we made complaint. We brought in the women to complain about it, right? And Somehow they went and brought the third secretary, but what happened to those 32 women is hugely complicated, because Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Bureau itself told us many of these people are illegal. Illegal means that they have not registered with Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Bureau. Whatever said and done, these are Sri Lankan citizens. Sri Lankan state has the responsibility whether they are illegal or not. Besides, right now, everybody who is migrating, if they want to register, they have to pay 21,400 odd Sri Lankan rupees. Very interestingly, that composition itself is problematic. 10% goes to insurance, right? 20% goes to Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau. Balance 70% goes to Sri Lankan employment agencies, right? So what does this whole amount that is being collected from the workers, how does this whole contribution of the workers have been distributed itself is a problem, because for many of us, at least 70% or 75% of that fee should have gone for welfare of the workers, right? So Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau itself for many of us is a culprit. They are not doing anything about it. They blame it on sub-agents for smuggling these people on visit visa or short visas. But very interestingly, these sub-agents are also operating with the already registered agencies that are registered under Sri Lankan Foreign Employment.
Right. Even you spoke about the Oman scandal, which was the attention of controversy in 2022 December last year. Nothing concrete has taken place yet. So it seems that the Foreign Employment Bureau is sleeping.
Yes. So we have to go to Supreme Court. One victim came forward to file a case in the Supreme Court. Therefore, we went to Supreme Court on this year, June, filing a case against Sri Lankan Employment Bureau, Foreign Employment Bureau, and they came, and within 3 days, they brought in these women. 68 of them were repatriated.
Right.
But after that, what happened to these women is also interesting. Nobody paid any attention to these women. Some of the women who came forward to talk about sex trafficking have been threatened. Calls have been given. Even myself, my colleagues have been threatened for talking about it. And no protection whatsoever.
Everything is just swept under the carpet, very unfortunately. We'll get back to you, Shreen, momentarily as we go along on this show tonight. I want now to focus my attention on Michael Joachim, chairman of PREDO, Plantation Rural Education Development Organization. Michael, I'll just pose a question to you to get some direction on the show. Let's start off with what Shreen spoke about. She said that plantation workers are subjected to slavery. Do you agree with this claim?
First of all, I just want to comment on one thing that she said, that we sometimes don't talk about migration as an industry. There's an industry that brings builds the economy of the country. So we don't see that as an industry, economic industry, which needs to sustain. And then in any industry there are workers. The workers have their rights, their trade unions. But if you take the migrant workers, whether internally or outward migrant workers, they don't have a trade union. So they don't have a voice. So the only place that where they can take part in decisions is the bureau. And then, as he said, the bureau doesn't have equal representation of the migrant workers at all. So we are demanding, first of all, that the bureau must have equal or equitable representation, power sharing for migrant workers to take decisions that affects them. There are so many decisions that are being taken without they are being consulted as to what they think about it. So that is first point that I want to take. And the second point is about the plantation workers. The plantation workers, they have the trade union. Unfortunately, their trade union and the political parties are the same. So they can't, possibly fight for their rights. The slaves, in the sense, they are still live as almost bondage workers in the plantations. They have, although they are voters, they have no right for land, for housing. Their wages are being decided somebody else. Even say this year, beginning of this year, the government decided to pay them 1,000 rupees. But then even that one, the companies are not paying. So whether it's housing or land or any other rights, they are still semi-slaves within the estate. So that's how you have to interpret these days, because they don't enjoy the rights of a normal worker. The women does not enjoy their rights. The children doesn't enjoy their rights. So I would basically say that's a place where modern slavery is still being practiced.
Michael, if you look at the Sri Lankan labor laws, when you say that the plantation sector workers are living in dire straits in terms of what they do in the plantation sector, they are semi-slaves based on the definition that you provided us just a couple of seconds ago. Isn't it sad, being a democratic country, talking about labor rights so vociferously, we have not been able to engage the plantation sector workers into this ring that we're talking about in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, that is because the state mechanism does not operate in the sector, in the sense.
But don't you think this is because of the selfish attitude of the plantation sector political parties,
exactly,
who are putting the people under the bus every single time something goes wrong, only for their political gain and will?
That is so. As I said, the most important thing is the political party and the trade unions are there to fight for the rights of the people, and they fight against the government or the political party. What happens when the political party and the trade union are the same? So people don't understand what is the difference between a political party and trade union. The trade union plays the political role, the political party plays the trade union role. So that is why they are unable to get the rights of the workers. Now say 1,000 rupee wages, the government makes a declaration that the companies must pay, but the trade unions are unable to get the companies to enforce that order. So that is where we stand. And then one more thing, important thing that I wanted to say is, recently you would have read in the papers, a single man filed a case in the Supreme Court asking that plantation workers be given their address, and the Supreme Court gave an order. So many years the political parties, the trade unions, there were so many political parties, they never will be able to achieve this. A single man went to the Supreme Court and got this. And what does this address mean? Address means identity of a man. Right for land, right for housing, right for voting, right for better health services. All that is an address. And then when you get an address only, you are recognized as a person, as a family. So even that small thing, or for plantation workers, this has really changed their history, in the sense, if the Supreme Court order is going to be implemented properly, then they will
the so-called plantation sector political parties, of course, when they need positions in government ranks, they seem to be hand in glove with the government, putting the people under the bus of their own people, but not in any way thinking about the goodwill, the livelihood of the innocent civilians living in the estate sector of this country.
This is exactly what's happening. So this is the first time. I would again remind you that there was a walk from Talamannar to Mannar, 240 kilometers walk, remembering the 200th year of the plantation workers coming here. And then for the first time, the walk made the government to recognize people as, all this time we were calling them as Malay plantation workers, identifying with their work, but not identifying with their place of work or the area that they live. So for the first time, this walk made other people recognize these people as Malayagam people. Malayagam means people who live in the hills. So that identifies them with the land that they are living. So this is the first time this identity has come. So I would say gradually things are changing, and then that is changing because the people are becoming more aware of the rights, fight for their rights, fight on their own.
Thank you very much, Michael, Chairman of PREDO, for your thoughts in the first round. I now move my attention towards Dilshan Indogowela, coordinator of the Voice of Migrants Network. What are your thoughts on our topic tonight?
So modern day slavery, when you say it falls, like Mishreen said, it falls under human trafficking and as also forced labor. So she said that there are many domestic workers who are confined into a house for 2 years. They are not allowed to go out. And especially in the Middle East, they are not able to organize themselves also, like what Mr. Joachim said. So they can't talk about their rights, and in the Middle East they have the kafala law where their passports are confiscated and they are not given, so they can't change their workplace, so on and so forth. Also, when it comes to the bureau, like what Mishreen rightly said, you know, their welfare is looked like at a very, you know, low rate, or they don't look at it at appropriately. So that's why as Voice of Migrants Network, migration is a necessity now in the country. Our slogan is that the migrant worker is the lifeline of the economy. So if they are the lifeline of the economy currently, we need to promote we need to recognize their rights and ensure their well-being. So as part of that advocacy, we have asked for voting access for migrant workers in the destination countries. That is one thing that we have asked for. And the other thing is to have fair representation in the board of directors in the SABFE. The SABFE currently has amended the act, and they have first they appointed one migrant worker. So as VOM, we have mentioned that that is not possible because one migrant worker against, like you said, 4 recruitment agents, 3 government officers is not going to, you know, cut the deal. So we have asked for equal representation and transparency in the selection criteria as well.
But what the problem right now is, Dilshani, with regard to the government's attitude, you know, they come up with a program right after the crisis that hit Sri Lanka, that electric vehicles will be provided to expat workers who send in remittances to the country. These workers are not even earning money, let alone buying a vehicle. Even finding the 3 square meals for their people who are living in Sri Lanka. These are just farces, you know, what this government is doing.
So what we really need to understand is who are the migrant workers who are actually coming back and who are actually remitting their like 90% of their salaries back to Sri Lanka, who is the lifeline of the economy. So mostly I would say the professionals, they migrate permanently for permanent residencies and with their families, so like most of them. And their remittances are very low. So the remittances that are sent to Sri Lanka is through the domestic workers, the low-skilled or the semi-skilled workers. So they go to build their houses or to educate their children, to pay off their debts, things like that. So can that migrant worker buy an electric car? Is that possible? Or is that the priority?
That guy, someone else is getting benefited, and these people are again still put under the rug.
Yes, so we are advocating that they should be properly recognized for the sacrifices they make, because they are not only making sacrifices for their family, they're making sacrifices for our families as well, because today we don't have queues, we have medicine, we have health benefits, we have educational benefits because of these migrant workers, because of the sacrifices that they are making. But then again, sometimes the government brings out regulations like the family background report, where they refuse mothers who have children under 5 years to migrate. So what is the, that is like against human rights, it's a human rights violation. That's against freedom of movement. So what is, okay, let's say that they brought it thinking about the development of the child, because a child below 5 years is developing, needs a mother and all that. But then what's the benefit that we are giving the mother, or what is the option we are giving that mother by refusing this? So these things lead to, you know, irregular migration.
Right. Thank you very much, Dilshan Nugawila, coordinator of the Voice of Migrants Network. Well, those at home, you may think, why did we select this topic tonight? While most of you celebrated Christmas a couple of days ago, we have forgotten the fact that at least a section of the communities, our society, are living overseas trying to keep us alive here in Sri Lanka. And that is why we thought we should speak about this topic tonight on modern day slavery. Let me open the floor for questions from our journalists tonight. On to my immediate right is Tharuni, on to my immediate left is Niresh. Niresh, with your permission, may I let the lady pose the first question to the panelists? Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, Tharuni.
I'd like to direct my first question to Shreen. The people who are currently held captive in Myanmar, they went abroad as IT professionals. But talk to us about marginalized communities who were declared marginalized because of the negative mindset of society towards them and due to the power imbalance in society. How has this negative mindset of the society resulted in the growth of modern day slavery when it comes to marginalized communities?
Say one thing that we learned from this whole sex trafficking of the migrant workers, we got 32 complaints. Out of that, almost half of them have been already in debt bondage, right? Mostly from upcountry, eastern province. Many of these women have already taken microcredits from unregistered these mushrooming microcredit organization. So what happens is when they don't repay, so this is during the crisis time. So COVID time, they would have taken the microcredit and they couldn't pay it because they couldn't use it, they couldn't do their livelihood because we were under lockdown for over a year. And then they wanted to repay, but then the crisis hit, right? So then that microcredit agent comes and says he is the sub-agent to send them to Oman or wherever the country is. So now they are already in bonded kind of a debt. So in order to waive off the debt, these women are being taken, right? And then you see what happens is these sub-agents, they are also Sri Lankan abroad. Many of them take away their passport and their visa page. Probably it's a visit visa for 1 month or 3 months, but they sell these women for 1 year for bonded labor, right? That whole 1 year, the amount will be paid to the sub-agent or agent. So the woman does not get anything, right? If she undergoes sexual harassment, abuse, kind of inhuman condition where she lives because sometimes they don't feed them, right? So then what if she escape and come, then they will confine her to some dark room, punish her and send her again to work in another place, right? So and also like many of these women, like we have, I think the Sri Lankan embassies, 5 places we have shelters, right? Very interestingly, today when I call somebody higher up, I know of within the system about these 50 workers who are, over 50 workers who are protesting right now as we speak in front of Oman embassy. They have not eaten well, they have not bathed for last 3 weeks, they don't have a bathroom facilities, they are all standing outside and protesting. They said these people are not registered, so it's not our responsibility to take them into a shelter. That there is a Sri Lanka foreign employment shelter in Oman, right? That's where the abuse happened, right? It's right now it has a space, but they will not take it, it seems, right?
But
so
why?
So what they are saying is that these people have overstayed. So in Oman, if you overstay, every day penalty is 10 riyal.
Oh.
So that's 10 riyal into 880 rupees Sri Lankan, right? So if you overstay, every day that you overstay, you have to pay penalty. Previously, I think Sri Lankan government negotiated with the Omani government in order to waive these things. And also many of these people wouldn't have passports, so you have to do a new passport, temporary passport to bring them back. So in that condition, even if we contribute for their air ticket to get them back, that some of organizations, individuals have been doing, particularly Sri Lankan workers abroad who are trying to meet their basic needs are also contributing to bring our people back. But we can't pay this penalty because some of these people, the penalty that they have is 500 riyal into 880 rupees. Calculate how much that would be, right? So Sri Lankan government is not doing much about it. We as Sri Lankan citizens are also looking down upon these people. I mean, you would have seen them in the airport, and I have seen them, struggling to fill the forms. They don't know where they are even going, right? We just ignore them and go. The way that they are being even treated in the airport entrance onward itself is a problem. And also, it's also the tendency that we have in our homes. How are we treating our domestic workers in this country? Do we have a law with regard to Sri Lankan domestic workers? Are we paying minimum wage? We are still deploying children under 16 in our houses. We saw when COVID hit, all the families dropped them in Vihara Mahadevi Park and everywhere. We have to go and pick these children up, and we can't also protect them because they are underage children, right? So in Sri Lanka, we as middle class, upper middle class, we have not treated our domestic workers very well. So we can't also expect another country to do the same unless we improve our workers' condition in this country and give them a decent work, domestic work. We have to legislate. We have to have a law in this country with regard to domestic workers, their minimum wage, their conditions and all those things. Then we can also talk about others. So we have to set a trend as well.
But if you look at it, Michael, Shreen spoke about issues with regard to the Oman matter. But if you look at countries like Saudi Arabia and the attitude that the Philippines government took towards Saudi Arabia in 2011 was quite amazing, because they stood their ground. They said, if you don't pay $400 to our employees, we won't send them. The way that you're abusing our maids is not acceptable, so please make sure that you'll rectify this problem. And they lifted that ban just last year on the 7th of November 2022. After nearly 11 years, they did not send their maids and construction workers to Saudi Arabia. The attitude of the Philippines government should be commended here, whereas the Sri Lankan government has not done anything. They are just continue to use the migrant workers just to make sure that the foreign reserves keep on getting cushioned. So is that fair?
Actually, now commenting on both my friends said here, first of all, as you said earlier, when the migrant workers come, one of the concessions given is the car. You see, how do the government or the people of Sri Lanka look at the migrant workers? They sacrifice their whole life, their family life, their children's future, their whole life. And how do we compensate that with this? You see, the compensation is a car or a gas cylinder. You see the attitude of the government or even our people. What is important is for the government and the people to change their attitude towards the migrant worker. Dilshani said, migrant workers are the lifeline of our economy. When I say lifeline of our economy, does that mean does it just words? Or does that really mean that the economy runs on their earnings or on their remittances? That's one point. The second point is, we as VOM had been saying, treat them as development partners in migration. That means everybody does work here, contribute to our development, are development partners. But when they are in migration, they sacrifice so much for the country. And then you realize their importance only when you are in economic crisis and they don't send the remittances. Then you are worried. Then you are talking about their importance, they are sending the remittances. But the important point is for the government and the people to recognize them as people who are running our economy. You can't go beyond that kind of recognition. That's that's basically important. Now I'll tell you two things. 18th was the International Migrants Day. Can you remember of any organization or government speaking of the International Migrants Day? Not even no organization. I don't know. But as far as I know, there was no importance to the International Migrants Day. This is because people talk of migrants when there's problem here or when you want their remittances. Second thing, 16th of July was the International Family Remittance Day. And unfortunately, no one even in the government or bureau, the ministry, knew it was the remittance day. So see the importance that they are giving. On the other hand, people are also not recognizing that somebody, today we are talking of migrants, tomorrow there can be a migrant from your house. It can be your wife or your husband or some family member. How are we going to feel when somebody is in migration? So that kind of feeling does not come until the government changes its attitude, and of course it is not going to change unless the migrants raise their voices.
Yeah, so with regard to, Michael, with regard to the attitude of the Philippines government towards Saudi Arabia, for ill-treating their migrant workers by giving them low wages and even to a point executing most of those. I remember this happened during the Rizana Nafiq incident, whereas Sri Lanka was under the hammer by most of the authorities for sending an underage girl to Saudi Arabia. The Philippines government went ahead and took a very firm decision against the Saudi government and made sure that the rights of their migrant workers are protected. 11 years.
Yes.
They did not send migrant workers to Saudi Arabia.
Of course, I should start with the point where she made. Bureau does not have any representation of the migrant. So who takes the decision? That is why we are demanding, first of all, the authority that takes decision about the implications of migrant workers, whether it's locally or outside. They must have equal power share in taking decisions. So unless that happens, nothing is going to happen, because people are going to talk the bureau, which doesn't have any representation of the migrants, is going to take its own decision. They can change. They can. 1 year ago, they changed the family background report. They are changing it without any consultation for the migrant. It is so with any decision. So it's important where the place where the decisions are taken about migrants' destiny needs to have equitable power sharing.
What can the government do now? Because we as a nation, they say beggars can't be choosers, so we don't have any option because we have to get that foreign remittances to cushion our country's economy as well. So what must the government do? Because I remember, Michael, very vividly, on the 9th of January 2013 in Parliament, the day that Rizana Nafiq was executed by the Saudi officials, 15 minutes before, the subject minister says that all efforts have been taken to secure the release of Rizana Nafiq. I was the director of news at that time, Niresh. And 15 minutes later, Ranjan Ramanayaka says in Parliament that she has been executed.
Yes.
Laughable. What are they doing? Are they even serious about, is there any sanity prevailing in the Parliament or the government authorities to protect the migrant workers in Sri Lanka? Absolutely not.
This is I have been always saying. The migration is an industry. So if you must think it's an industry that runs the economy. So the government must take it as an industry, give recognition to the migrant workers first. Unless that happens, nothing is going to change. That is why we are trying to even small things. Let us say we have the migrant workers, the migrant worker societies. We have now built up the migrant voice of migrants. Now on the International Migrants Day, the minister was there. We demanded that the bureau have equal representation of migrant workers. By that time they had agreed for 1, and then there was so much pressure it went up to 3, and we now know they are trying to have it at least 3. So it's not the numbers, but it is the power of the migrant worker to take decisions. That's one thing. And the second thing is our foreign service. Whom are we having in the foreign service? Who are the people who are being employed as in the foreign embassy? They are not people who are being trained to look at the particular interest of the migrant workers. We have been demanding that they must have a separate foreign service to deal with migrant work with special training. but that is
At least at the countries that migrant workers are
that's
there.
exactly, yes.
Countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, at least focus on the GCC countries.
Have trained people who are concerned about the migrant. What's important is now those are the people who bring us the remittances, and these people are in charge of those workers. And then, but everybody is blaming the foreign embassies in countries, destination countries, that they are not doing their work, or that they are not doing or their service that is really affecting the migrant workers. But in Philippines, we know that they have been trained, and then their government supports them, so that they are really able to support. Here, we don't have a foreign service that is concerned about migrant workers. So the same happens with the decisions of the government. The foreign service or the foreign embassies must tell the government, these are the things we need to change.
I can't imagine, Michael, what was going through the mind of that 16-year-old girl on the 9th of January 2013, Rizal Nafiq, when she was going to be beheaded. I just can't imagine what she was going through at that minute, because complete negligence by a government in charge led to that situation. The first time Rizal Nafiq was at court, there was no translator. A lot of issues cropped up. Look at the lackluster attitude of the government as well. You know, it's a shame.
Shamir, let me ask Dilshani, since that particular case of Rizal Nafiq, has anything changed in the attitude of the government agencies in Sri Lanka?
At least.
Because now, especially over the last 1.5 years, we hear stringent calls from various government ministers, our government ministers, telling our people to go overseas and send back more foreign exchange. It's government policy now. The more Sri Lankans who go overseas, the happier the government will be. But has the government taken any step to facilitate and to ensure the safety, the basic safety of our workers whom the government wants to send out there?
So I like to say, like, under ethical recruitment, you asked me whether the government has changed the recruitment process. The minister has mentioned that there were 1,500 recruitment agents registered under the Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau, but recently he has suspended the license of 400 recruitment agents, licensed recruitment agents, and 200 he has permanently cancelled. So are they under the ethical recruitment code of conduct? So IOM has an ethical code of conduct, and what happened was they were all recruitment agents were supposed to go under that code of conduct, but the previous ministry actually changed so all the recruitment agents were supposed to register under the ALFIA, that is Organization for Recruitment Agents. But the previous ministry changed it and said that if they want, they can register. So because of that, none of them went under this ethical recruitment code of conduct. So I don't think anything has changed, but recently they have amended, and the ministry has said that all recruitment agents should register under ALFIA, and they should go under the code of conduct so that they'll be monitored. But when it comes to the Philippine issue, what I think is that our government plays different roles when it comes to recruitment for foreign employment. They also do business, they also do the regulatory role, they also do monitoring.
What do you mean by business? The government is involved in business.
So like, yes, so they have an agency. Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Bureau has a separate agency that they do recruitment.
You're saying the ministry is also making money in this whole process?
The Bureau is making money because now, like what she says, the recruitment agents are in the board. So, you know, the judges are the same, the thief is also the same, the victim is also the same, so everything is inside that. So why have a recruitment agent in the board of directors? Because that's a separate business entity. So let's say, okay, that's considered a stakeholder and that is how they work, but then so like she said, 70% of the money goes there. So where the Philippine government is concerned, I think they play only the regulatory role. And they are focused on ensuring rights for the protection of rights for migrant
who's
workers.
making this money, Dilshani? Now you're saying the government is involved in business. So who's making money? There has to be someone who's making some money.
So there is recruitment agents making money. There is the Sri Lankan foreign employment.
Is there anyone in government?
So in the past there have been, no? There have been ministers, you know, sending, I don't know right now, but now see here it says the SFBFE has contributed 7 million to the National Treasury, 7 billion, sorry, to the National Treasury. And that has been a surplus of the operating cost. So why can't that be used, okay, for the National Treasury to buy medicine and all those things. But what are they doing for the welfare of the migrant workers?
That doesn't necessarily mean that someone in the government is making money, does it?
No,
Because
that doesn't mean someone in the
whatever goes to
government is making
money. Centralized budget is not someone trying to make some money underhand.
No, what we are trying to say
Are you
here
trying to
is,
say there's someone who's
no,
making money underhand?
That's not what I'm saying.
Through this
What I'm trying to
process?
say
Then that's
is,
alarming.
yes, what I'm trying to say is the Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Bureau should be monitoring and making policies and be in the regulatory role and not doing businesses, and now they are organizing workers as well. So like we have come to understand that organizing migrant returnees. So migrant societies consist of returnees, potential migrant workers and family members. So we decided, we organized these migrant workers to voice their concerns, because it's outsiders who talk about them. They have to have their voice heard. And Voice of Migrants is where we create a platform for them as well. So because the Bureau is doing trainings, the Bureau is doing policy decisions, the Bureau is doing the regulatory role, doing registrations, registering license agents, and also doing, you know, sending migrant workers abroad and getting job orders and all that. That's too much on their plate.
Now,
So then that way.
Let me ask Shreen. Shreen, since the government declared bankruptcy and thereby destroyed whatever economy we had, the economic situation of our people has just, you know, nosedived. And there's a survey by the Department of Census and Statistics, which was published today, which proves that quite officially. Now, Shreen, with these conditions, are you seeing more people going overseas and getting abused? Are we now, as Sri Lankans, are we some kind of target internationally, because people know that we are beggars?
Yes, it's true. Before I answer your question, with regard to Philippines, they have bilateral agreement, right? Sri Lanka doesn't have any bilateral agreement with these countries, right? Therefore, you can't do anything about it when something happens. So, Philippines also they send in skilled migrant workers. So many of them are nurses, nannies, and English speaking and all those things. So therefore, their condition is much better. So because of that, the government was able to negotiate with these countries. But we are just picking some poor woman and putting her in a plane and sending her without any cost involved. So right now, Sri Lanka, to earn dollars, this is the easiest way, right? So we are basically, as Sri Lankan government, we are part and parcel of trafficking, right? That is one way of earning income. Take Israel, we are trying to send our workers to Israel. Already there are 8,000 workers in Israel. We have already got 2 dead bodies, and few of them are trapped in the hostage, Hamas hostage. Still, we want to send our workers. Somebody is getting a cut. You ask about who is getting a cut, you should know who is getting the cut right now. That's 70%.
No, I don't know. You tell me. I don't know.
Now, if we are sending people like this, right? If we are let loosing all the policies, right? our new Labour Minister is all about.
So the new Labour Minister is making the money.
Probably, right?
Probably.
Our Labour Minister is all about letting loose all the labour laws. Not only migrant worker related thing, but locally the existing protection that we have are also being taken out, right? And then they talk about ILO convention and all those. This year alone, Sri Lanka underwent 2 important reviews. One is UPR, Universal Periodic Review. The other one is CCPR, ICCPR review, right? Both Sri Lankan government very proudly came and said, yes, there is trafficking done, we are just trying to fix it, right? And then the Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Slavery and Sex Trafficking has written about it. And our Sri Lankan government on February 7th, and Sri Lankan government gave a reply on May, and it's all about what they have done, and including a hotline 1989. You call that hotline now and see whether it's working, right? So what is happening is that we are openly acknowledging the fact that we will bring in dollars to this country by any means, right? Any means that we'll put all our people in a plane and send it to somewhere as far as the dollar is dollar comes to our country. So that is the policy that we have, basically, right? So we are part and parcel of human trafficking.
Shreen, is
right? So this is going to increase. That's what my answer to your question also, that every possible way that Sri Lankan government, if somebody is bringing $100, they will send. Now more recently we are also getting people, dead people from certain countries, their organs are removed, right? So we are wondering whether our people are being killed, even though they are saying they fall ill and they are dead, why their internal organs are missing, right? So we are not only human trafficking, we might be entering into a process where there can be organ trafficking as well. People could have been trafficked for organs as well. So this Myanmar case and all, I'm really worried about, because people are cutting across our immigration. Now, many of these women have told me that this one-day passport, this is not only minister per se, entire system. There is helmet passport. I asked, what is helmet passport? Somebody's passport, you take it, remove the face and put another person's passport and they'll seal it and give it.
No,
right?
I don't think you can do that, because there is a fingerprint system.
I don't know.
Ministry of Immigration.
But there is helmet passport.
No, because I visited the passport office today. Sister,
Maybe you are.
Yeah.
But immigration officers are all part and parcel of this. Now, if you want one-day passport,
if there's something wrong, Srin, I have to tell you, because today I went to get a passport.
Yes, but it might not work for you.
I had to give my fingerprints, and it has to be
I'm
recorded.
also cutting across the airport, but this is human trafficking trade. This involves our immigration officers, our passport officers, Sri Lanka Employment Bureau.
So this is a ring.
It is a ring. Right? That's how they are being smuggled out, right? You need a one-day passport. Employment agency has told one of the women who went. Now, one-day passport, you usually pay 15,000 or something like 20,000, right? If you pay additional 20,000, you don't have to stand on a queue. You don't even have to take a prior approval. But the passport will be delivered to the travel agency. Now, how is this happening in immigration? Right? These are well-organized trade in this country. Everybody is getting a cut, including Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau, Labour Ministry, whatever the ministry. The other thing is there is no coordination whatsoever. You call the Sri Lankan embassy, they say, no, we are not in charge of these things. You talk to Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Bureau.
But
you call them, then they say Labour Ministry.
On that, Srin, I may have to correct you. I don't know how that is happening, to be very honest. But today I was there at the
you and I
Minister of Immigration, and I stayed on a queue for nearly 2.5 hours.
Yes, you and I
had to stay for another 3.5 hours to collect my passport as well. So I don't know how this process is happening. So I'm a little bit oblivion to that. But so I'll leave at that and give you full authority to speak and voice your opinion on that. Again, as I said before, all three of you have to take responsibility for the statements that you're making, because we would not, as a network, take responsibility for the statements that you make. Tarun, you had a question for Shreen.
Of course. So, is there a system in place to check, to ensure the legitimacy of the job opportunities that are offered by, as Dilshani said, there are plenty of unregistered foreign employment agencies, but is there any system in place to check the legitimacy of these opportunities that are being offered?
Okay, so if it is government is advertising, right, like now they're advertising for Israel, construction workers, farmers, right? Likewise, the government has a way of finding job opportunities outside Italy, Korea, various other countries they are advertising. And also, there are, registered agencies. So the registered agencies are listed with the Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Bureau, and every DS office in each district we have foreign employment development officers. They are supposed to have a list, but I went and checked few districts, they don't know, right? Sri Lanka Foreign Employment also has branches in district. They are supposed to have these registered travel agencies. But when somebody is desperate, right, this person is not going to find out whether this employment agency is registered or whether the job is getting. Most often, how Sri Lankans are going to Middle Eastern countries, they go on 1 month visa. Then the visa is extended to 3 months, right? Thereafter, sometimes they have to go outside of the country that they are in from. Say, for example, if they are in Oman, they have to go to Dubai, and then work visa is worked out by the travel agent and, foreign employment agent, and then they come back, right? So that's how it works. Now, so lots of people, even white collar workers of Sri Lanka now, right now, it is, they are also getting trapped. The Myanmar is a good example. They are IT professionals, right? So what is happening is, because of the tax burden in this country, people have to pay most of their earning as taxpayers, right? So they have to, as a middle class people, they have to educate their children, and all this cost, the electricity, the food and everything. So people are just voluntarily going to find somehow some money to keep the families alive, right?
Well,
Government knows
tax
that.
burden, I think from the 1st of January we are going to be hit by an even larger tax burden.
That means lots of even
From the frying pan into the fire.
middle income earners are going to go. Now, I have been traveling to these Middle Eastern countries because of these migrant worker issues. I have bumped into engineers, right? Some IT professionals, some well-educated people, young men in supermarkets, in malls and all. So they are waiting to get suitable job, but they take temporary job for 1 month or 3 months. If they don't get job, then the problem kicks in, because the travel agent will abandon, the foreign employment agent will abandon. Then they will have to work out. If they don't work out, if they overstay, then they have to pay penalty. Now that's when the problem starts.
So let's say that they make it back before the visit visa expires. They maybe, for instance, like the Myanmar situation right now, if they are being held captive or abused or something, let's say that they escape and make it back to Sri Lanka. Are there any legal consequences that they'll have to face because they've used illegal means to go abroad?
They are not going through illegal means.
Okay.
They are going with the visit visa. The visa will be extended, right? And then if they pay penalty and come back, it's not a problem at all.
But if they go through an unregistered foreign employment agency?
Still, Sri Lankan government, there is no penalty or punishment. As if you get into trouble, because you don't have an insurance, so even there was a woman who came on a wheelchair, and the Sri Lankan government refused to, even with the medical record, they refused to pay because she didn't go through their legal means, that she is not registered, right? But very interestingly, many of these sub-agents that who finds these jobs are also Sri Lankans. They are connected to Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Shelter, because sometimes these women escape and run to Sri Lankan Foreign Employment Shelter. They are being taken and given back to the agent, employment agent. They have WhatsApp numbers, right? I have contacted many of them. So WhatsApp number means, like, when we go and make a police complaint with regard to that, they are not taking people with possible jobs. They are just trafficking these people by telling lies and all. There is no SIM card. They are all using Sri Lankan numbers, right? But you need once a SIM card to register WhatsApp, and thereafter they throw it away, right? So, but then still that number works, and it's extremely difficult to trace these people.
So, Dilshani, I want to get back to one of the questions that Niresh posed earlier, saying that we had a representative of the Foreign Employment Bureau on the show a couple of months ago, and his argument was we want to send Sri Lankans as much as possible from our shores because that will increase the foreign remittances to the country. But little does he realize the educated people who are going from Sri Lanka are not going to send money back home. They're going to that nation to stay there. I just don't understand what was going in the mind of the Foreign Employment Bureau representative when he said that this is the expectation from the government.
Yes, so we haven't really understood, like that's when they changed that 5-year leave for government workers to go abroad and work and come back. They really didn't understand that the gravity of it, that they would go back and not come back, they would go with their families because the low skilled, the semi-skilled workers don't have that choice. But the professionals do have that choice to take their families and go. So they didn't realize that, and the number of workers going out, that's now we are having a big brain drain. But what we have realized is, as Voice of Migrants Network, is there is brain gain coming in as well. The returnees that come in, they have knowledge, they have skills, they have the language, and we are not using that because again, you know, we don't recognize them the proper way. We give them an electric car, or we give them, you know, concessions at the duty free, right? That is not what should happen, because once they come back and they, you know, if they are low skilled or semi skilled, they start a grocery shop or buy a 3-wheeler, and that's not sustainable. Then, like she said, they get into debt all over again and they remigrate.
Because I know a lot of people who have come to Sri Lanka during the COVID-19 crisis and who couldn't sustain themselves and now again willing to go back overseas, and this is
But there is
sad.
a lot of knowledge within these people. The language skills, like just imagine a lady from an estate who hasn't gone to school even, goes for 2 years, earns money, learns Arabic, learns to live in that country under that law, and comes back, you know, and builds the house that she was dreaming of, or educates a child that she wanted to, gets the children, gives them in marriage. And some of our garment sector workers they are graduates, they have studied for 16 years and still they can't speak English. But this is like, we have to understand.
But something is missing here, Dilshan. It's just not the stakeholdership at a government institute that is going to arrest this problem, is it?
No.
There is definitely a missing piece of the puzzle in this instance. What is that missing piece?
So the missing piece is that none of us recognize what these migrant workers are doing for us. Like, see, during COVID, we thought that they were human bombs. We didn't want them to come to Sri Lanka. Not only the government, right? Even the community, the media. And even the media, like I must say, even the media, they only report on negative issues of migrant workers, but never what they, you know, give back to the country. Like Mr. Joachim said, Voice of Migrants Network, we had a program on the 18th of December. That was not showcast anywhere. There were journalists who came. So, like, and there were journalists in some programs where they said, if the minister speaks, we will cover it. If not, we don't want to. So, does that mean that the migrant workers' voice is not important? So, I think everybody has to come together. We have to understand see, like I said before, also before the show started, we are beggars right now. And we are, you know, we are living a good life right now. We don't have queues and all those because of the sacrifices that most of the time the migrant workers make. We are living on their sweat and their tears. So we need to recognize them. Okay, what if we say tomorrow, okay, we don't want our migrant workers to go abroad. Up from January to October, they have, the remittances have been 4,862 million USD. Who's going to earn that for us? So what we should do is we should recognize them, we should protect their rights. Actually, we have bilateral agreements with we have 23 bilateral agreements, but most of them are not working and most of them are not transparent as well. So we need to make strong bilateral agreements as well as we need to have proper coordination with everyone.
So Michael, again getting back into the plantation sector workers, because this is an area that I'm also very passionate about, coming from a tea export cluster in the group of CMG. They are living in dire straits, but no corrective action has ever been taken to uplift their livelihoods. It seems that the political parties want them to live like that because they can take a political advantage out of those innocent people.
Yes, actually, the basic change can come only when the plantation workers are given their land rights, their housing rights, their recognition to be citizens of the country. So unless that happens, nothing is going to change because they are only going to depend on the plantation companies. So I think at least now the government now says they are going to give 10% land and with deeds. So that might, if that...
Don't forget, next year is an election
That's right,
year.
no, exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. So that's because
Government,
this
of
had been
course,
said
knows
so
how
many
to play
times.
the card very well.
Yes, sir, this had been said so many times, but that had not worked out. So we have to see how things are going to roll. Now even say with regard to migration, now one point that I think Dilshani missed is that you also asked that question. We have a return and reintegration policy, a very good policy. How do we treat our returnees to ensure that they live here, invest their money that they brought, invest their skills here, but that particular return and reintegration policy doesn't have any allocation of funds. So what are they going to? So you see, you make a policy, but then if you had to implement the policy, there must be fund allocation, there must be resource allocation. That is not happening. Say in the plantation worker goes. Now one thing we must remember is that the plantation sector is going to be affected by migration. Already there is shortage of workforce, and more women are migrating. Is definitely going to affect the plantation sector. That may be so with other sectors also. What are we going to do in the future? Are we taking this as a serious thing where we are trying to improve one sector or an industry and then trying to sort of kill another sector? So this is a point that we also have to think very carefully and then see what are we going to do about this.
I'm getting a lot of questions, so I have a not a question, but somewhat of a comment, a recommendation to the three of you. I request that two ladies and gent approach international organizations, the United Nations or the ILO, foreign governments from the developed world with good human rights and peer organizations in labor exporting countries and request tough standards on countries using migrant labor. If these countries fail to meet them, there should be penalties such as trade, tourism, and financial embargo. Is this possible? Is this a practical solution, Michael?
Well, these kind of recommendations or suggestions have come before, but how are we going to sort of face this is a question. I think it's a very difficult question to answer because that involves so many stakeholders, so many policies, so many implications. So I think that's a very complicated.
Yeah, it's a far-fetched
Yes, that's right, yes.
reality
Yes.
to be looked
Because
into.
those conventions, it's up to those countries whether they could ratify or not.
Ultimately.
So there is a certain limit that any institute or any government can, push these countries to ratify those.
Because I remember A-level first lesson on economics is the fact that despite the fact that you sign international labor treaties or international conventions, ultimately the rule of the land reigns supreme than anything else. So whatever conventions are signed, those amendments have to be brought into the Sri Lankan legal system as well by the legislature in parliament, and then only you can actually participate in that whole process, and that is what even the IMF had wanted the government to do, incorporate whatever changes that they have wanted into the Sri Lankan law system, so it can then actually be implemented in the country. Dinesh, if you don't have a question, Theron, if you don't have a question at the moment, we can just go for a quick short commercial break. And when we come back, we discuss on our topic, modern day slavery, with Dilshan Indogowela, Michael Joachim, and Shreen Abdul Sarur. Stay connected, stay with Face the Nation. We will be right back.
Undermine that whole procurement standards, practices have not been followed.
So if you just look at the women who are earning a decent wage, it is less than 10% of the working age.
Industry where the dollars or the foreign exchange we bring in, there is a cascading effect.
Look at the revenue. So this budget is expecting almost a 45% increase in the revenue.
That is particularly for Sri Lanka at this time. We have so little leeway.
The People's Platform.
Ganadda, in its strides, secures the path for Surya Pokuna Husallavina, guiding their journeys, banishing fears. Laying the foundation stone for a new bridge, a testament to safety and progress. Ganadda, for the people, by the people.
TV1, Sri Lanka's premier infotainment channel.